for joining us for today's AVST Live webinar. This is Ann Rude with AVST Marketing, and our session today is Centralized Voice Infrastructure and Private Cloud. One of our senior sales engineers, Dick Reddy, will be presenting, but before I turn it over to him, just want to let you know that you can get access to downloading the slides in the handouts area if you want to go ahead and grab those. We will also send those out in our follow-up email, which will be later today. So we'll include a link to the slides as well as a link to the recording. And lastly, we always leave time for Q&A at the end, and I want to let you know you can type your questions in at any time during the session, and then we'll have those queued up. So hopefully I think we're ready to go, and I'll turn it over to Dick.
Thanks, Ann. Glad to have all of you with us today. This has been a pretty interesting topic for us. We've been around for a long time, AVST has. As a matter of fact, we're celebrating our 35th anniversary this year, so any cards or gifts you want to send, that's fine. But over that time, we've seen a number of changes in the industry and in customers' needs and requirements. Obviously, when we first started out, and even in through the 90s or so, primarily what you saw were organizations coming to us that were wanting to first deploy voicemail as it got its start back in the early 80s, to replacing systems as they aged. It was primarily I have 4 sites, so I need 4 voicemail systems, one at each site. Now, maybe they'd be networked together so that users could transfer messages back and forth, but there are 4 separate systems that were at each of the different sites. And that continued on for quite a while, not just for us, but for anybody in the industry, because everyone really just had a single box solution. Then as organizations started to grow and networks started to develop and grow, we really started in the early 2000s, started to see a real requirement and desire from the customers we were talking with to start centralizing more of their technologies. It makes a tremendous amount of sense for a lot of reasons. We'll talk about some of those as we go through. So we have re-engineered our core products to address that need, and we really feel that we are probably in the best position of any UC provider that is delivering the technologies provided by AVST, similar to the technologies that we provide. We're in the best position to meet those centralization requirements because of the flexibility and customizability of our solutions to meet your needs, to match your existing environment and changes that come to your environment. And of course, private cloud, that's just a term that we toss around. Essentially, that means your network. It means everything that's sitting behind your firewall, as opposed to the public cloud, Google services and AWS and Office 365 and those types of things, and the various technologies that may be moving up to there for certain organizations. So, as we start talking to these organizations, the common theme is from a lot of these is we got a lot of people, we got a lot of locations, we have everything under the sun, everything, different manufacturers, things. Possibly through mergers and acquisitions, we were an Avaya house, but we bought somebody that was a Cisco house, and then we acquired somebody that was a Mitel organization, and we now have this mishmash across our enterprise of different technologies, different solutions, and some of the technology is off the book, some of them is still being depreciated. It just is a real mixture of things, which really complicates the situation. How do you get a centralized solution which makes the IT department happy because it's easier to manage, easier to maintain, easier to deploy, and still be able to extend the life of the technologies that we have? And that's really what organizations are looking for at the end of the day, is they don't want to have a wholesale replacement of the other technologies within their environment to address the needs of centralizing certain technologies that they have. Many of the major analysts out there, as they look at this need for organizations, they see that most of the manufacturers that are out there today, while all of them provide the applications and the technologies that we're going to talk about today, none of them are best of breed in all of those areas. They may be one of the leaders within a certain aspect of the technology, but when you look at all the technologies as a whole, a single vendor solution generally does not make the best strategic choice for an enterprise, because there is such a disparity of technologies out there. Looking for a best of breed solution is still the best way to go for most enterprises, and that is broadly seen as the widest recommendation from most of the consulting firms that are out there. So here comes AVST into that mix, and who are we? Why is AVST one of the enterprises that you should consider as you're evaluating a way to move in this direction of centralization, of leveraging the investment in your private network, your cloud, so to speak? Well, quite frankly, we've been doing this for a long time. We've been around, as I mentioned, for 35 years. We're one of the oldest organizations within this space that's out there, and we really are broadly seen as being a best-of-breed solution within these areas of unified communication that you see there today. Not only from an infrastructure point of view, but from the application point of view, the robustness and flexibility of the applications that we deliver to the marketplace is really unrivaled. And our ability to accommodate your environment the way it looks today, along with easily adjusting ourselves to accommodate changes that are going to be made to your environment in the future, is one of the things that has really attracted us to many enterprises of all shapes and sizes. We'll talk about one here in a little while towards the end. That was those are some of the main reasons why they took a look at us and eventually selected us as. Now, when you look at organizations as a whole, there's lots of different gradations of the needs and requirements. The things that best address the needs of the individual may not be able to work very well within a team. And the needs of the team, the ability to process information amongst a group of people are something that an individual may not necessarily require. They need the things that they need. They don't necessarily need the things that somebody else needs. And businesses, organizations, they have their own set of needs and requirements, be it from the administration and maintenance of the system to keeping the system secure and up and operational at all times. So as you're looking for solutions, sometimes it can be very difficult to find a solution that meets the needs in all these different silos. To have something that addresses the requirements of the IT department, to be able to easily manage, easily maintain, is secure, is reliable, has a very high uptime, while meeting the individual requirements of those individual workers out there, which may be a desk-bound worker. They come in at 9 o'clock in the morning, they sit down at their desk, and they don't get up until they leave at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, to those individuals who rarely sit at a desk. They are always bouncing from place to place. Their office is Southwest Airlines. That's where they do a lot of their living. How do you give them the tools and requirements that they need while still maintaining the eye to the rest of the enterprise? And that's our ability to have solutions that spread across the requirements of all of the different aspects of an enterprise are why those enterprises choose AVST. We allow you to get the new advanced technologies that your users are requesting, your users are requiring, and will, quite frankly, make them more productive, along with leveraging your existing infrastructure. We are uniquely architected to be able to do that, provide advanced solutions regardless of what your infrastructure looks like. The feature set that is offered by AVST solutions is exactly the same, whether you are on a 20-year-old Meridian 1 PBX or a brand new BroadSoft, Cisco, Avaya, whatever PBX environment, Microsoft Skype for Business. Our feature set is identical across all of those. So as your infrastructure changes, we are uniquely positioned to be able to provide the same level of solution as your infrastructure changes, which means less disruption for your organization. If you can put in place a solution that will provide the same level of service with where you are today and not be disrupted and have significant changes to it when you change the other technologies within your environment, that just makes your job easier. That just makes your job better. That future-proofing of the solution that you buy is a significant advantage to you. And we provide that in ways that are not available with competitive solutions that are out there. So the CXE is our flagship product, and it provides a broad range of applications. We'll hit on a couple of these today, but we're not going to talk about every one here. We have other webinars that you're welcome to attend. We would also love to come and sit and talk with you one-on-one to see what of the applications, the broad range of applications that we have, might help your users be more productive, be more accessible, be able to access information that they need to have access to in order to do your job. And the solution can be deployed, and the feature set, again, is identical, regardless of how you want to deploy it. You may want exclusively a premise-based solution, one that lives behind your firewall, delivering the voice messaging, auto attendant, mobility, call completion, call center solutions, things like that. You may want all of that behind your firewall. Security is the #1 issue, and you've got to have it there. You may have started moving some of your technologies to the cloud. And as you deploy these new solutions, you want them housed in the cloud. You don't want to be burdened with managing the technology on site. You want somebody else to have that responsibility for managing the uptime and keeping the applications running and going. Or maybe a blend of those two, a hybrid type solution where some of it is in the cloud, some of it is on premise. And the CXE is uniquely architected to operate in any of those deployment models, premise-based, cloud-based, or a hybrid of the two. And a lot of that has to do with the interoperability that we have. Now, AVST is not owned by a PBX or data manufacturer. We don't make routers and switches and telephones and things like that. We make a CX family of products. So our ability to interoperate with the rest of the technology that's out there, the Avaya, the Cisco, the Microsoft, the Mitel, the Unify, the other technologies that are around there, that are around enterprises, our ability to interoperate with that has to be a core competency for us. And it really is. There's not another solution that's available in the marketplace. Although some of our competitors do provide interoperability into PBXs, other email platforms, things like that, there is no other solution available in the marketplace that matches the interoperability that's available on the CX platform. Whether you have a single PBX, multiple PBXs, multiple email platforms. We were talking to one customer a couple of years ago now, that it was a large university, And at that time, the autonomy that is provided to various departments within universities is almost dizzying. And as we were talking with them, they told us that on campus they had over 150 different email platforms operating on campus, which is just staggering to me that they would have that many different email platforms operating on campus. That they wouldn't have had all of those unified, and this was just 6 or 7 years ago. We were the only solution that they were looking at that could provide full unified messaging to every single one of those email platforms from a single CXE platform. So our interoperability is quite incredible and really makes us the safe choice for you as you look to replace that legacy messaging call control platform. Because regardless of where you are today and where you're going in the future, we have a unique ability to be able to accommodate that. So hybrid is really where we see much of the marketplace going. There are very few organizations, maybe on the very small side, where they don't really have the resources available to manage these technologies in-house. So moving everything to the cloud makes a lot of sense. But most medium to larger enterprises, everything's not in the cloud and probably isn't going to be. And these days, probably everything is not behind their firewall either. They are using some cloud services for certain aspects of their enterprise. It's more of a hybrid approach that has really been the most active today around most enterprises. And we have all these boxes here of applications and things. You could really move these boxes on any side of the line, from public cloud to private cloud. Private cloud, again, being behind your firewall, public cloud being what's on the outside of your firewall. You could mix and match these in really any way, and you would find an enterprise or an organization that would be configured in that way. And that's why many organizations choose AVST, because it really doesn't matter where you mix these boxes up. AVST is one of the only providers out there that is able to provide a solution that can accommodate the degree of hybridness that you have within your environment, or the degree of exclusiveness you have, private cloud versus public cloud. Giving you, again, a solution that accommodates where you are today and can easily accommodate where you're going to be tomorrow. So let's start looking at the technologies that really power that interoperability, that really facilitate that centralization of a number of technologies within your environment to make them easier to manage, easier to operate. So let's talk about the core components that make up a CXE platform. The survivability, high availability, disaster recovery that's available within the CX platform is really unrivaled. I mean, most solutions out there, have a server, and if you want a redundant system, a server or a set of servers to provide the messaging call control solution that they have, unified messaging. And if you want a redundant solution, you have a duplicate of that. And it's either active-active or an active passive and requires a switchover. The unique architecture of the CXE platform goes far beyond that. As you can see, very scalable to meet virtually any enterprise's needs and requirements, tens of thousands of users across hundreds of ports, hundreds of locations. So let's take a look at the components that make up this, that really drive this architecture and the survivability that we can provide, the reliability in a single centralized solution across your enterprise. So the tools that you really look at to drive that, there's a number of different technologies. Virtualization has really been a driving force in the centralization and disaster recovery goals of many enterprises. Virtualization, be it Hyper-V, VMware, other technologies that are out there, allow for a single physical box to house multiple virtual servers, which can which allow you the ability to easily deploy solutions, easily and economically deploy additional server applications without having to spend significant money on additional hardware that's out there. We fully support virtualization, survivability, whether it be with the core database server, whatever, a number of smaller features and items that sometimes get overlooked as you're talking about getting a new messaging platform in place and call processing system, are things like the telephone user interface emulation, the retraining of your users coming from your legacy platform to a new platform. How easy is that going to be for your users? We provide an emulation for most of the legacy and current platforms on the marketplace, so that there would be virtually no end user training required. Users that span multiple time zones, so that as they listen to messages, they're presented in the time zone that is appropriate for them. Not having to do the math if they're accessing their messages in California for a system that's housed in New York. They don't have to say, when the system says this message was left at 3 p.m., they don't have to say, well, gosh, was that 3 p.m. or was that noon? The system automatically adjusts for that. When you start talking about virtualization and the tools that are available for that, we fully support virtualization on the CX platform. We are a certified VMware ready solution, taking advantage of many of the high availability and disaster recovery options that are available within VMware. So a host dies, you're having a problem with a host and some of the virtual machines on it, the ease of moving that to another virtual machine, vMotioning it from one server to another, one host to another, the resource allocation, so that as the resource needs, CPU and memory needs of a server application increase, the resources of the host can be dynamically allocated. All of those types of capabilities are fully supported on the CX platform, which in and of itself provides a very high level of survivability, reliability, disaster recovery. Hyper-V is the same way, where all of our applications are available to be deployed within Hyper-V on a Hyper-V server, virtual servers, supporting, again, many of the high availability solutions within the Hyper-V environment, meaning that as you deploy the system, you can be assured that that the system is going to have a very high level of uptime just based on the tools that are available within a Hyper-V and VMware environment. But within our application itself, we also provide many tools that support the high availability and disaster recovery needs, because Hyper-V and VMware are concerned primarily and almost exclusively with the hardware, or and when I say hardware, I use that term a little bit loosely. Hardware could be the physical host, which is a piece of hardware, or the virtual hardware, the virtual servers themselves. It's very possible to have a sick application on a healthy virtual server, and VMware and Hyper-V are happy as a clam when that goes on. We have a number of tools available within our application that take the high availability and disaster recovery a couple steps beyond just what's available within the virtual environments themselves. And the first has to do with the core architecture of the CX system, which is available whether you're on physical servers or virtual servers. And we support, of course, physical and virtual, but we also support a combination of physical and virtual servers. So if you have your core location where your VMware or your Hyper-V farm is, but you have a remote location that you need to deploy a CXE server, but they don't have VMware out there, you can put physical servers and have them operate within the same server core as the core CX system running in VMware. But there's two primary server roles that make up a CX system. The system server, which is the brains of the operation, all the system licensing is on the system server. The core database is there. All normal administration is done towards that. The message store is there. And then there's the call server. And those are the call servers are the guys that actually do the work. When your phone forwards into voicemail, for example, ring no answer forwards into voicemail, that call is answered by a call server. So all the real-time applications are run on the call server itself. So all your auto attendants run on here. During normal operations, the whole database is not replicated from the system server to the call servers, but the portions of the database that are required for the call servers to continue to do their real-time call processing application are replicated from the system server up to the call servers as they're needed on a real-time basis. What that means is, if this call server were to become isolated from this system server for whatever reason, system server suffered a failure, there's a network issue that causes this call server at a remote site, say, to be isolated from it, it still continues to do all of its real-time call processing and message taking activities without any changes whatsoever. No manual intervention is required. It just keeps right on answering calls, keeps right on processing those calls. Your callers won't even know that anything has happened. Now, as you think about the call server, well, what happens if the call server itself fails? We do support the deployment across multiple servers, multiple call servers. We support up to 20 call servers on a single CX system. And you normally would spread the ports across these multiple call servers so that the loss of any single call server has no impact on the functionality of the system. Obviously, the ports that were supported by that would not be available, but the other call servers just keep right on going because they function independently of each other. So there's no loss of functionality just because you lose a call server itself. So let's take a look at how this can be deployed. You can have multiple call servers at the main site, your core site. So obviously losing a call server, you still have the other call server fully operational. You can deploy call servers at a remote location. And this provides a number of levels of survivability out there. Obviously, the loss of a call server does not affect functionality whatsoever. The other call server just keeps right on answering calls, taking messages. As soon as this call server comes back up, it syncs up with the PBX and starts answering calls again. If something happens here in the WAN and these become isolated, these call servers again keep answering calls, keep taking messages. Those messages are cached on the call server till communication can be restored to the system server, and then they're posted down to the system server and made available to the users. But still providing a very high level of survivability with no change in how the application itself works. And that's key. Many of our competitors provide local survivability at remote sites, but if that site becomes isolated from the core, the features and functions that are available are a small subset of the features that are available within the system when it's operating at full functionality. We can also provide multiple system servers. You look at this picture and you say, well, what happens when the system server goes down? We do support multiple system servers. When they're co-located together, it's a hot standby with uninterrupted service. If the primary one fails, the secondary one automatically brings itself up, takes over the role as the active system server. The call servers automatically rehome to this guy, and with no manual intervention at all, you still remain at full functionality. You also can extend that out to a remote site for disaster recovery, so that in the event you lose this entire site, this entire data center goes down, it's a very easy process to activate this system server at the DR site. Once it's activated, the call servers automatically rehome to it. During that period of time, the call servers are just taking calls. They're answering calls. The real-time call processing is completely uninterrupted during that situation. During normal operation, the database is automatically replicated between these system servers so that at any given time, any of those system servers can take over the role as being the active system server within a CXE system. Now, in order to support remote sites, we're showing a call server out here at this remote site. Many of our competitive solutions out there do support remote presence at other sites, but they primarily do that through media gateways. There's some from Dialogic. There's a number of manufacturers that make media gateways that can be deployed out there. They convert the TDM connection to maybe a legacy PBX and run them back via SIP to the main servers. We also support media gateways or call servers out at those remote locations. So you can deploy either one based on what your requirements are. Now, there's advantages both ways, and there's shortcomings both ways. Obviously, running the call server out there, it's a full server, so you have to do all the normal server maintenance on that. But if the network fails, it continues to take calls, answer calls, do full call processing, message taking. The applications are completely uninterrupted. The DMGs have the advantage of very minimal maintenance. Once you put them out there, there's no maintenance that has to be done to them. They just sit there and go. There's no patching, all of that type of thing. But if you lose the network to that remote site, these guys just are a piece of metal sitting in the rack. There's no functionality. They cannot answer calls if they cannot communicate back to the main servers to which they're homed. So there's trade-offs there. AVST is unique in that we give you the choice. What is going to meet your needs and your requirements the best? And many of our customers utilize both. At key sites that need to have the high availability, they deploy remote call servers off of a core CX system. At other sites that need to have legacy platforms and need to maintain connectivity, they deploy DMGs because they may not necessarily need that higher level of survivability that's provided by a call server. It's entirely up to you how you want to do that. We support either way, and transitioning from one method to another as your needs change is very simple, very easy to do. As you can see, capacities are very high. We support many of the largest enterprises within here in the United States and around the world. We don't have too many customers that are beating up against these limits. So unless you got 70, 80,000 folks in your organization, we're going to be able to take care of you. And even those larger size enterprises, we still have solutions that are available for you. So let's talk about that as well. Another key aspect of centralization is administration, and that's probably been one of the hardest things about having solutions the way they were 15, 20 years ago when you had separate systems at each of your remote sites, was the administration of those. How do you do administration? If you need to create a new mailbox on a system at a remote site, how do you do that? Do you have to log in with a modem? Do you have to make a remote desktop connection to that system, make the mailbox there? A centralized solution significantly it makes that significantly simpler for you. And we have a number of administration tools to enhance that as well. We have both a desktop and a web admin clients that are available for you. We allow unlimited administrators to log into a single CX system. There's no fixed limit to the number of administrators. Single point of administration within other external applications. For example, user administration within Active Directory. And so when you create a new user within Active Directory, it automatically goes over and creates their mailbox on CX. Unimax, for example, has a wonderful solution called Second Nature. That is a unifying administrative interface, not only for your PBX and your CX platform, but for Active Directory, for fax servers, for any number of different technology solutions that you have in your environment. Unimax is a wonderful solution for that, so that you have a single point of administration for much of the technology, far beyond just your CX, your telephony environment, going into many other different aspects of it. And of course, all of the importing and batch editing and the security code resets. Users can securely reset their own password for their mailbox, for example. Tools like that make your job as the administrator easy, much easier to do your job. So let's take a look at one customer. We have literally tens of thousands of customers out there, but highlighting one customer that uses AVST technology. University of Toronto, it's the largest university in Canada. They had 3 campuses, and they really wanted to centralize. When we first started talking to them, each campus had their own set of telephony technology, their own separate voicemail systems, separate this, separate that, and they really wanted to start going down the road of unifying that and centralizing all that technology. As you can see, pretty large, 11,000 faculty and staff, over 72,000 students there. And one of the first steps in centralizing was the messaging infrastructure. And they chose AVST because we allowed them to centralize their system, the core system, while still having, while still being able to serve those remote sites. By having remote call servers at their other campuses, which ran back to the central database of the core CX application, provided local survivability. Unified messaging was of interest to them, and the way we offer unified messaging is quite unique, having multiple methods for deploying it to meet your security, discoverability, your requirements for that. And the training, they had to do virtually no end user training by deploying the CX platform because of how faithful our Octel telephone user interface emulation was. The users were able to transition over without having to relearn anything new, which made that the retraining needs virtually non-existent for the University of Toronto. And if you'd like to speak with or enterprises, be they other universities, other enterprises that would be similar in scope to yours, similar in what you have technology-wise, what type of organization you are, we'd be happy to facilitate those types of introductions for you. So as you consider AVST as part of your total UC solution, a couple of things to think about as you're doing that. What's your PBX infrastructure look like? Is everything current? Is everything from the same manufacturer? Do you have disparate PBXs? Email the same way. Will there be mergers and acquisitions that will bring into play other types of technologies? And having a platform that can incorporate those into the CX application, that's a huge benefit for you. Many organizations need to upgrade their messaging infrastructure, their voicemail call processing. Maybe they're still running on Windows 2003 servers. We talk to a lot of customers like that, but they don't really want to. They don't really have the budget for or need to upgrade their PBX infrastructure. Many competitive solutions require significant upgrades to the PBX. We don't, allowing you to deploy many of the enhanced capabilities provided by the CX platform, even with a 10, 15, 20-year-old PBX. I was talking to a customer the other day that had an old Meridian 1 PBX that was more than 20 years old. And we can provide the same types of applications in that environment as we can if you have a latest state-of-the-art PBX infrastructure. How are you addressing the needs of your mobile workforce? Training your users as you migrate forward and do that. How are you going to handle that? Sometimes if you have to change the telephone interface for users and training 5,000, 10,000 users can cost more money than the system itself. Not having to do that retraining can be very significant. And all of the other applications and scalability, all the things that we've talked about today are things that are very important to take into consideration. Not just look at, say, we have this system that was doing voicemail, maybe a little bit of unified messaging, and we just need to replace that. What other types of solutions might you be able to incorporate into your environment, which will significantly benefit your users, your departments, things like that, without having to deploy multiple solutions? Everything about a CX, just about everything on a CX platform are just licensed modules of the core CX platform itself. So our mobility, our speech, our call center solution, IVR, all of those are just licensed modules of the core CX application, not separate solutions that you have to deploy, each with their own server instance, administration interface, things like that. And of course, we're talking to many customers that are evaluating Skype for Business, not only for instant messaging and video conferencing and things like that, but also as a telephony solution. Skype for Business Enterprise telephony solution is something that a number of enterprises are looking and evaluating at this time. We haven't seen a wholesale replacement and move towards that, but we do know that many organizations are looking in that direction, and we are the only third-party messaging platform out there that provides a full integration into Skype for Business enterprise telephony, meaning you can make the migration at whatever speed you want to. If Skype for Business does become your choice as your next generation PBX, the transition from your current platform to the Skype for Business is very easily handled with the CX platform. So why CX? Everything we've talked about today. We are a trusted platform having a significant resiliency and reliability that's just not found in competitive solutions. Whether it's basic voice applications, advanced mobility, speech applications, call center applications, whatever those solutions are that you're looking for, we have a proven track record with tens of thousands of customers worldwide that has shown that the CXE is probably at least a solution that you need to consider as you're looking at taking that next step in technology in unified communications. So now we come to everybody's favorite slide, the question and answer period. Can answer your specific questions as well as we're getting close to the end of our hour. So, Ann, do we have any questions?
We do have a couple, and for anyone who has not already submitted a question, if you'd like to do so, you may have your webinar panel minimized. Use the orange arrow in the upper corner, and then you should be able to see the question box. So, Dick, first question, with centralized locations, can you segment the speech name directory?
Yeah, that's a great question. Especially for the automated attendant, we have a unified directory for users, and that makes sense if you're a large enterprise and you have users in multiple locations. But maybe you do need to segregate the directory, maybe from an automated attendant perspective. And we do provide that so that the users, if somebody calls into the Dallas office and they want to speak with Dave Smith and they speak Dave Smith into the speech-enabled auto attendant, they only want to get the Dave Smith that's in Dallas. They don't need the Dave Smith that's in Alaska, for example. So yes, we do segregate the directory not only for speech-enabled auto attendant, but also for a DTMF-enabled automated attendant. So if we do a dial by name directory in a DTMF auto attendant in Dallas and somebody spells out Smith, the only Dave Smith, even though you have 5 of them in the enterprise, if only one's in Dallas, that's the only one that's going to be brought up in recognition of that. In addition to many of the other speech-enabled applications we have of duplicate name disambiguation, things like that, multiple aliases are all a part of the system when you speech enable it or even not.
Okay, great. Next question, does AVST recommend the DMGs in some cases?
Well, we really don't make general recommendations. What we do is we sit down and we talk with you about each location that is going to be served by the CX platform, and make a determination with you, talk through the pros and cons of either piggybacking on top of the PBX environment and keeping everything fully centralized, and we have a number of customers that do that, versus putting a remote call server out at that remote location, or putting a DMG. It really depends on what your needs are and what your requirements are for that location. There's not a one-size-fits-all. There's virtually nothing in the CX system that's a one-size-fits-all. So we do support the DMGs, and if that's the most appropriate thing to use in your specific situation, that's what we would recommend. We may make a completely different recommendation to another customer that may have a similar situation to yours, but has a few unique needs that they have to address. So it really depends on what your specific requirements are and what your specific needs are, what recommendation we would make for that.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Dick. There is one more question about downloading the slides, and those are posted to the handouts area, but also we will send out the follow-up email later today with a link to those if you'd like to grab those or review any of the content. That email will come from AVST Marketing, so just a heads up on that. And it looks like that actually wraps up the questions. We just want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today, and thanks again to Dick for this presentation. And in addition, I will include a link in the follow-up email to some of our upcoming webinars in case you'd like to join us again on another of these sessions as early as next month, I think is the next one. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.
To learn more about AVST, please visit www.avst.com.